What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 327 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I'm my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Great.
Oh,
How are
good,
you?
good. I answered you before you even asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going through the motions. Joining us this week is someone who I don't know if we've bumped into, but we've definitely maybe brushed shoulders and also gawked at from a distance. Is cosplayer Raymond Ramos. Raymond, thank you so much for coming on.
You're quite welcome. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Everything is great. Like I said, we've seen you many times, Raymond, going back to, I believe the first time was Boston of 2011-ish.
That might sound about right.
It was like the year Colin went with us. A friend of ours, this guy Colin, came with us, and we were walking to like the end of the line. It was like we were going to the line. This is when it was back at the Heinz, so it was like around the corner, and we were walking like a little bit behind probably the best Blade cosplay that I have ever seen. And like we were walking past the line, and everyone like because we were a little bit behind you, Raymond, and like everyone was like pointing because we got to see the end result. Like as you walked by people, we got to see people's reactions, and it was all, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see that? And it was like it started, and we've also seen you many times throughout the years in many different costumes. But that was our introduction to you. From it's just gone on from there. We've seen you dress up. That's such a lame way of putting it. We've seen you, in so many unique different outfits and things of that nature. How'd you get into this?
Oh, well, let's get started. Blade has always been like obviously one of my favorite characters. I'm a martial artist myself. Need to get back into my training, but I'm a martial artist myself, and that movie was just so awesome, and I really gravitated to that movie. So my martial art teacher, Kempo Joe, throw a plug out there, Kempo Joe Robello, that's the man right there. He had a former student who was putting together a local show in my area. And I'm in the New Bedford area, New Bedford, Massachusetts area. So in the fall, I'm going to say Fairhaven, Mass area. And so he said, I have a former student that's going to be putting together a local comic show. And maybe he would be interested in having you show up. So at this time, I had the costume already put together for like Halloween at my job. But it goes back even a little bit further to finding the sword. Because that's the sword.
Oh, yeah, that's a quality sword.
That's the sword. At that time, everybody was doing the whole fad of, even if they weren't martial artists, it was a fad going on where people were just, getting samurai swords and things of that nature and putting them up. And I told myself, I don't want to go that route. If I ever actually, hang anything up, I want it to be the blade sword if I could ever find it. And my son's mother and I, we just happened to be at a local galleria, and there was an Asian shop there in the mall. And so, I'm all about Asian stuff, so I'm like, hey, let's go in. They had weapons, and I'm like, oh, look, they got all these weapons. And one of the weapons that they had was the blade sword, and it was like the heavenly music cued and everything. It was like, oh, and it's just shining at me. So I'm like, oh, I gotta get this. So eventually, I bought the sword, and it came with a scabbard that you could wear.
Ooh,
it had, yeah. So that was awesome. It was an optional thing where you could take you could take it off, some of the straps off if you didn't want to, but it had like a backpack type of strapping, and I was like, oh, this is so awesome. It'd be really cool is if I could make a costume to go around the sword.
It's like finding Excalibur.
Exactly. For me, that was the equivalent. So it was like, all right, awesome. So I'm like, yeah. So, my job at the time kind of encouraged people to, dress up for Halloween. So I'm like, I have to. So I put together, it was a pretty crude version of Blade, because at this time I didn't really know about the whole crafting materials. We can get into that in a little bit. So that was my start. So I was like, it was very low key. I used whatever I knew how to use, and I just threw this. I threw this costume together, and the stakes I used. They were flat and squared shape. It was just like 3 or 4 layers of like foam board, glued together with some metallic poster board on top to make it look like metal. And the only real thing that I had was the sword. I think they might have also had a knockoff version of the glaive.
Right.
So I had the sword and the glaive, and everything else I made. I threw together a really crude vest made out of like leather on top with some foam board for the chest plating and things of that nature. And I threw that together, and I wore that to Halloween, and everybody was really like, yeah, that's so awesome. The following year, I think it just kind of kept upgrading.
Right.
So by the time the first comic show came around, I pretty much had my Blade costume, really where I kind of I was really happy with it at the time. I was able to find a really cheap leather trench coat at like a thrift store for like $25. You can't go wrong with that. Yeah, $25, but it wasn't as long as I wanted it, so I ended up basically going to the fabric store. I bought some leather. I extended it by 10 inches.
Damn.
And I bought some red lining and used some of that liquid glue stuff and like puzzle pieced this lining on the inside of the jacket, made the hole in the back for the sword to go through, and I was happy. I was good to go. And then eventually I found the actual stakes. So I guess things just kept upgrading for my Blade. So by the time I actually went to my comic show, which was the South Coast Toy and Comic Show, down, like I said, down here in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, it was there that I was expecting to run into more people that were in costume and things of that nature. So this was going to be my first exposure to a Comic-Con type of environment. And unfortunately, nobody else showed up in costume. So
really?
I was like, I was bummed out. So I was like the only person in costume at the show. But you know what? I was the only person in costume at this show. So this is the first time I started actually getting, people actually wanting to take a picture with me in this costume. And so it was like, it started there, and eventually that show started getting a little bigger, and then I actually started branching out a little bit, and I think that's when I went to Boston Comic-Con for that first show. And it was Blade. So Blade was pretty much, I was feeling it. I really enjoyed the way the costume looked. It felt totally bad, and I was set. I was like, you know what? Okay, this is great. But that was the first year I went to Boston Comic-Con, and people gave me some misinformation about the whole weapons policy. We're talking weapon policy, people.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Metal swords.
First exposure to a larger show, and I am calling everybody that I know, and I'm like, okay, I want to go to this show, and I need to know about the weapons policy. I'm hearing people talk about weapons policy. I need to know what's the deal. And some people gave me some bad information. They said, as long as you keep your sword in your sheath, you should be good. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's okay. I'm like, great. Okay, that's the person. Seemed like the only real person who reached out and gave me some information. So I'm like, okay, great. And I get to Boston, and not more than 5 minutes into the door, I get approached by security. And I'm like, oh, man. And they're like, excuse me, sir, but we need to check your weapons. I'm like, oh, no. And
you should be like, well, just don't hold it too long without hitting the reflex switch so it doesn't explode your hands.
So I'm like, okay, great, this is awesome. Not. So sword. Let's check the sword. Oh, there goes the sword. Confiscated the sword. The glaive, confiscated the glaive. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, you guys are just killing it for me right now. I'm like, this is supposed to be Blade. How am I supposed to, how are people supposed to know this is Blade without
the blade?
Yeah, exactly. So, and now they're looking at the stakes, and I'm like, come on, can I at least keep the stakes? And they let me keep the stakes, and the stakes were the most dangerous thing.
So there's a few layers to this, because I wanna open with saying, like, I'm sure that, like, without these props, these extras, it would still be really obvious who you were, No,
not really. No, not really. Because I'm walking around. I got these sunglasses on. I'm bald. I'm a brother, and I got this long trench coat on. What other movie do you know of a person of color with sunglasses and a long trench coat and is bald?
Oh, were you Morpheus?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So people, yeah, you got it.
Okay.
So people were thinking, they're like, hey, look, it's Morpheus. And I'm like, freak off.
All right, no. They have to pay attention. Like, if it's not like a really hot purple coat, and the red lining. Morpheus never had a red line. By the way, you're like, the attention to detail.
We have like 50 questions just based off of your first story. Like, as you were telling the story about coming up with Blade, we're both like taking down notes. Like, okay, I'm going to follow up on this. I'm going to follow up on this.
The red lining, I feel, is like one of those things that could have been passed over, but like the attention to detail and be like, no, this is a thing that has to happen. It's what's going to help make it look hot.
Yeah.
And I get it. That's really
respect.
Nice work.
Thanks. Yeah, it was like totally like, oh no, I'm not Morpheus.
But you're kind of right, because it's. I mean, I'm gonna make it sound like it was a long time ago, years ago. What was it, like 7 years ago?
It was
7 years
really,
is 7 years ago.
But I mean, conventions weren't as as good as they are as sharing information now. I'm pretty sure back then you couldn't go on the website and like look at the cosplay policy or look at the weapons policy.
Right.
It wasn't listed anywhere because it was never really a thing for certain conventions.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
And one of the stories I tell, one of my first anime cons type of shows was Kineticon, and they had this whole list of what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. No live metal, no wood props, only foam or plastic props, and all this. And like people aren't allowed to have certain size props and weapons. And then I go to a horror convention and I want to get my machete signed by the Jason actors,
legit metal sharp machete.
And I walk in, I'm like, I need to find an employee, a security guy to tell him and ask him if it's okay. And I finally find a guy and we talk to him, and I go, hey man, can I bring in my machete and get it signed? It's in the car right now. I didn't bring it in yet. It's in the car. I'll be safe with it. And his answer was, yeah, just don't do anything stupid with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe it or not, the weapons policies are sometimes they say this and that and this and that. And guess what? I've seen this and that and this and that in on the floor.
Oh, like when you can buy a sword from a vendor.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't remember the last con that I've been, like, there's always the sword booth. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, hey, they're always, normally at Kineticon, they're playing really loud music all the time. And like, it's like, you want to buy a sword? Here, I have a whole collection of swords. You can buy one right now. If you tried to walk in the building with one, they would have taken it, mm-hmm. but now you can buy one.
Yeah.
Yes, you could buy one while you're there. But the thing is with that, they prefer that as soon as you buy it, that you bring it to your car.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's what they prefer. But let me go back to the Morpheus thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back before the Morpheus. The reason why I found out later on that they were on me the way they were, probably a little bit more than what they normally would have been, was because President Obama was in the building.
Was he really?
Huh.
He was in the building. He was in the hotel or whatever on maybe another floor. So Secret Service security was extra high. So they were on me.
What's attached to that? The Prudential Center?
Yeah, in a way.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were on me. So now I'm walking around, and I got the trench and everything like this,
Yeah.
and now I'm starting to get warm, and I got a couple of Morpheus comments, and I'm like, oh man, this I'm not Morpheus, and they took my main, the main prop that I really needed for people to really understand that this is Blade.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, they can't see past the jacket and the glasses for whatever reason. Okay, I know I had put some work into the jacket, so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, you know what? These people took my weapons. You know what? I'm going to have them take my coat.
Yeah.
Hold this.
Now you're coat check.
Yep, they were my coat check people. So I went and said, can you since you got my weapons, can you take my coat and hold my coat for a while? Okay. I figured once I take the coat off, people will actually be able to see the vest.
Yeah.
Which was like the second vest. I want to believe I made like between 3 and 4 versions of the Blade vest, and it just, I'm one of those people, I like to upgrade as often as possible until I feel totally comfortable, and I'm like, yeah, this is the version I like the most.
Right.
So once I got rid of the coat, and people were able to see the vest, and at least the scabbard was still there. So, obviously the sword case is onto my back, and now without the coat, you can see the stakes and the vest and the clips on the side with the fake silver bullets. I don't know what type of gun I had at that time. I don't think I found the Mac 11 replica prop gun yet at that time. So I might have been using, I don't know, maybe, I think it was like some kind of video game gun, not like Duck Hunt or something like that. It was a little bit, a little bit more. It might have been a PlayStation gun. It must have been one of those PlayStation guns at the time. And so I cut the cord off of that bad boy, painted it black. And I think that's what I was using as the pistol at that time. So once I got rid of the coat, people were able to actually now understand, oh, that's Blade. So, yeah, and then that made me feel a little bit better, but I really felt naked without the gun. I mean, without the sword and the glaive.
Especially when you say, like, the outfit was modeled around the sword. Like, you found the sword, now it's time to make the outfit. And then when it's like, nah, man, we need that sword. It's like cutting your legs out,
It was like getting chop blocked in wrestling. They just took the knee out. It's gone.
When I've been Mandarin, no one's confiscated my rings. So,
those are lethal.
Yeah.
Yep. Very, very dangerous rings.
10 different blasts.
So when you were talking about creating, we're still on the Blade, but there's so many other things to get to. Did you have any prior experience doing this, or was that like your first foray into it? Because it sounds like you did a lot of modifications.
Well, I've God bless me with a very particular talent, and so I'm very thankful for that. And so I've always been a very detail-oriented person. So I used to make costumes all the time growing up as a kid. For my friends and things of that nature, out of poster board and things of that nature. And so I was always, I was good at that. So when I got into like high school and junior high school, when taking shop, I found I was good with wood. I was really good with woodworking. And so and I also took, in junior high, they make you take the sewing class and stuff like that. So all that stuff kind of gave me a background where I was familiar with it. And so when I got a little older, I said, what the heck, I've done all those things before. Let me try doing it on a bigger scale. So I literally sewed a bunch of stuff together to make the vest, and like I said, this is before I really got into all the things that people really use today now to make their props and costumes and things of that nature. I might have known about hot glue, maybe if that, but I might have used hot glue to pretty much probably put the whole thing together at that time. And that was before I realized hot glue is not not your best friends. And I'm sorry if you guys keep hearing that beep beep, because I think I'm getting messages from Facebook.
I think we're good on.
I don't know if you guys can hear that beep beep. That's I'm hearing it.
I've gotten a buzz here or there too. It's not a problem.
We're all just so popular, man. We can't help it.
Yeah, so it's just a bunch of beep beeps going on. But once I got into I found the sword, and I want to make this costume. Like I said, it wasn't really polished. It wasn't a really polished look until I got, maybe into the second version, and it was a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, the second version was definitely a lot better than the first version.
Right.
And after the whole you took my sword incident, I told myself, you know what, this is never going to happen to me again. It hasn't. It's never happened to me again. So I decided to make the majority of everything that I had that was deadly wooden props. I decided to make them all out of wood.
Right, right.
Because, like I said, I was pretty good at woodwork and shop and stuff like that. So I had a Dremel, and I think those were my main tools back at that time. A Dremel. I don't even remember if I had a saw, but I must have had some kind of saw to cut the sword and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to make the sword completely out of wood. So I basically used a yardstick and a mop handle and some more a foam board.
Mm-hmm.
And some more metallic poster board, because the metallic poster board seemed like it was working on the stakes prior.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just put the whole sword together. Sword 1, we'll call it Sword 1, and that was my replacement. And so I tried to get that handle. The most important thing was the handle, because that was the thing that was going to be seen the most out of the scabbard.
It's very distinct.
Right.
Yeah, very distinct, very detailed with the glyphs and everything like that. So I made the sword, and then I made a foam. I think it was a foam. It might have been a foam board version of the glaive at that time. Later on, I made another version out of wood, but I said, you know what? It's never going to happen again. I was like, so I made some wooden stakes, and then covered those with metallic poster board, because I'm like, okay, these might not get in, the real ones, so I didn't want to take a chance.
Yeah.
Yep.
I definitely didn't want to take a chance, and so I made the fake glaive and the sword. And so I'm like, all of these parts that should now never have an issue. And then I got in I went the following year to Boston Comic Con, and I had no problem, none whatsoever.
Good. That's a
None
relief.
whatsoever.
Well, as long as you had real syringes for that some cure.
Of course.
But I didn't get to those. I didn't get to those till maybe version 4.
And
So, yeah.
we've spent a lot of time on Blade, and while that is a fantastic outfit and character that you've put together, there's so many others that we can also touch on, and it's like, there's been a couple times, I don't know if it's inappropriate, like, can I make a joke about how can they take all your weapons when they can't physically remove your arms? Because, like, if you haven't seen Raymond at a show, Raymond, you're a big dude. You're, like, very intimidating. That's one thing that why, like, most of your costumes work so well is you are able to fit, like, the profile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've seen you in Bane before. You are, like, you fit it. It's not like, oh, hey, it's that guy dressed up as Bane. It's, oh shit, that's Bane.
Well, when he's Roadblock, I mean, he's literally the toy I used to have as human size. There's no like, well, he could be bigger.
Well, thanks, guys. Well, I got to give Roadblock credit. That Roadblock credit to Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because that's my version of Roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching the G.I. Joe cartoon. That and it was one of my favorites. But The Rock bringing Roadblock to life. It was a different version, and it was more military based, and I really, really loved it. Myself and my twin, Fred Holt, we both do Roadblock, and so it's based off the Rock's character. So that was So when you get into a Roadblock, yeah. But I've always been into like physical fitness and stuff like that. So, but I didn't start getting bigger, I don't think, until maybe I really got into my later years and later adult years, maybe in my later 20s, and then I really took the gym serious. So thank you guys for noticing all that hard work.
Of course, man, of course.
Well, it's not an easy thing to maintain, and even, me and Jar have agreed recently, it's like, maybe we should take better care of ourselves, and look out for our future.
It's not like we're getting any younger.
One of the things I like to point out is one of Patton Oswalt's jokes that he tells. He'll say something like, yeah, I started going to the gym, and he's like, you're going to laugh, but I'm not trying to be some Adonis. I just want to have my original knees when I'm 60.
There you go.
Yeah.
In fact, I just started a new workout program, like online challenges and stuff like that. I just recently became like an online coach. So if you guys really are serious about getting into shape, after this whole thing is over with, just hit me up and I will share the information with you. And if you guys are serious, I'll get you there. Yeah, awesome. You heard it first, right here. I'll get you there.
How about your Batsmans? Because you've got the two of
Yes, I do.
I'll say two because I mean even you say like all your customs have evolutions and versions and you keep updating them because you've got like your Archon one and you've got your armored bat one. So I guess
let's go. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to know?
I'm trying to put together so I imagine like those were your first like really big builds. As far as armor work goes.
If you want to get to the first really big build.
Well, in the past, I've seen you post a picture of like some of your first Batman helmet.
It's before it predates Batman. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
I grew up in the '80s. Okay, and when I was in elementary school, there was a show called Guy King. It was in it might have been part of this show called Force 5. And it was a very sci-fi Japanese animation style back then, and it was a space dragon, okay? And I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it was a blue space dragon, and it had this golden head, dragon head. And what would happen is this dragon head would shoot off the dragon, and an upper and lower torso would shoot out mechanical-wise. It's like a mech. Would shoot out of the mechanical dragon, and they would form one robot. And this robot was called Guy King. And so the chest, the head of the dragon would become the chest, and another head would pop up, and it was a robotic face with the horns of the dragon from the face. And that was my first really big build out of foam. And I have to give credit to a young man, Austin Vincent, who I met at a show, and he had made this so awesome Iron Man costume completely out of foam.
So I have that post up right now. Because, to remind me, because you had posted this, I think, back on May 19th, because I saw you post it, and I'm like, that guy looks familiar, and I took a picture with him as the Mandarin, and that was 2015, and it was at the Seaport, and I was walking around, we saw Iron Man, and he was there with his mom. And his mom was like really hyped for him. She's like, this is my son. He's like 17. He made this by himself. And I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome. Let's take pictures. And like, she's taking pictures. And like, I was really nice that his mother was there to see other people being impressed with his work.
She was his handler. and I got to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I saw him first. I met him first at Rhode Island Comic Con, the first year of Rhode Island Comic Con, and he just blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh, and so I had to go talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one who put me on to the whole making of the using foam in the EVA. So
Yeah.
I went and did research. And, well, technically, the first build I made, the first thing I made was the Lion-O claw shield from Thundercats
Mm-hmm.
out of the foam. But the big whole costume I made was the Guy King. And I think I wore that, I want to say maybe 2012. And that was the biggest thing I had ever made because it was so intricate, and I had never used these materials before. And I think I entered the costume contest, and I think I won Best Anime.
I looked it up as you were talking about it. I imagine it might have had a really cool crossover with Mazinger Z at some point, too. If they did those back in the day.
Mazinger Z, yep. But when I was growing up, they all had different names. So Mazinger was, when I grew up, it was called Transor Z. So it wasn't called Mazinger, but it was called Transor Z.
Right.
It must have been the American version, after they bought the rights and redubbed everything.
Yeah.
It's just like Grandizer and the Space Cateers and Star Blazers, and those are all the shows that I grew up like watching that were like mad sci-fi and really, I think, really nurtured my imagination at that point.
Okay,
so what else you want to know? Come on.
I didn't realize it was Austin who turned you on to the foam work.
Yes, it was Austin. So I always give him credit. I always try to give credit where credit is due. Point blank. Yep. Exactly. And I've been running with the ball ever since. And it's funny because I was looking at one of the memories that I had, and it was 2015 that we ran back into each other, and he had another version of Iron Man. Now, this kid's a genius. This young man's a genius, and he puts all types of electrical stuff in his costumes. I don't know how to do that, so I just work with the phone.
Right.
So we ran into each other. This was the year that I first debuted my Arkham Batman hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I call it Arkham Batman hybrid because it was influenced by two different video game Batmans. It was influenced by the Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight Batman. So I kind of just mashed them up and I threw them all together. And so my sister was documenting this for me. She was my handler that year. And we ran, when registering for the costume contest, I ran into Austin again. And I don't know who his handler was, but he was in the Iron Man again. And if anybody doesn't know, Austin won like Rhode Island Comic Con like 2 or 3 years in a row straight. So he's in his Iron Man, and we run back into each other, and my sister took the picture just at the, oh man, it's priceless, because his eyes just bulged out of his head, and he's like, because he's seeing my Batman for the first time, and he's like, oh, like you could tell, you just read the picture, and he's like, oh crap, and yeah, so I was able to actually, that was the year that I actually won Best Masters.
Okay.
Damn.
For my Batman. So I dethroned him. It was like, so, it was like, I was like, ooh, but so it was a bittersweet. It was a bittersweet thing.
What I wanted to finish was him having his mom there. Like, the parent can always be proud of their child, and that's great. But when the parent gets to see everyone else be really, really psyched about what their kid made, that like gives an extra level to be like, it's like, yes, my son made this thing, and I think that's really neat. But then if other people were like, yeah, that's okay. But when other people are like, oh my God, can I get pictures? It's like, my son did that. So it was really nice, like getting to see them share that.
Oh yeah, and you know, like I said, when he started making some of these things on stilts, it was a wrap. It was just a wrap. It was like, okay, Austin came in on a costume with stilts. Okay, everybody forget about
Let's just
it.
go home.
Just wrap it up.
Just-
We're done. We're done
There you
here.
go.
Let me throw my costume in the trash and just leave.
Thank
But-
you for coming. Thank you for coming, but there we go.
But that's rad to hear that, you know, you were able to show up in your in the new Batman outfit and were able to take the
seasons.
masters.
Yeah.
Like just the word, oh, I'm in the masters division, you know, it's not a big, I also won it. Did you, when you entered in, like, were you expecting to take that home? Did you feel like you had a chance at that, or was it a surprise to you?
It was a shock when they, you know, I would have loved Best in Show, but Best in my friend Kit and her husband, they got Best in Show that year, but they totally deserved it. But I was shocked, you know. I kind of like with costume contests, I just kind of be like, you know, I'm just gonna do it for kicks and giggles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and just to see what happens, just to see what happens. Let the people see, you know, my costume on stage and get a good look at it and stuff like that, you know, because I had a bad experience with my first costume contest. I'm not gonna say at what show it was at, but it was a bad experience where one of the judges I think was upset at me. This is prior to the contest, and then when I saw that they were a judge, I was like, uh-oh, I hope there's not going to be a problem here, and I think there was, so I was a little disappointed with that, you know, it kind of left a little bad taste in my mouth, so I think the next show that I went to after that was Boston Comic Con, when they went to the not where Expo is now, but where, what was it, the Heinz?
They were at the Heinz, then they went to the World Seaport, and now they're at the BCEC.
Okay, so it must have been the World Seaport. I believe it might have been there.
That's the building that's on the water.
They were there for about 3 years
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah, so that was around 2013. So we're looking at 2013, and it was the debut of Bane.
Right.
Right, and I believe Yaya Han was there that year, and I was so psyched because I was like, I heard she was there, and I was like, I have to meet this woman. I'm like, yo, I see her all the time on Facebook. I'm like, I gotta meet her, and so she was so taken back by Bane. I mean, it was really an awesome experience, and a humbling and honored experience because she loved it. So much that she had her fiance come and be like, "Yo, I gotta take a picture with this guy."
That's really cool.
Because I think I wore Blade the day before, and so I told her about Blade, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna," you know, I went and met her first as Blade, and then I said, "Okay, tomorrow I'm gonna be dressed as a Bane, and I'll come by and let you see it." And she just loved it, and everybody seemed to really enjoy the Bane that year. And like I said, it was the debut, but I didn't plan. Like I said, I had a bad taste with costume contests, and so somebody, and I wish I could remember who it was, because I can't give credit to that person, because it's like that unnamed hero. That's all I can say, because I didn't remember I can't remember who it was, but they liked my Bane so much. They were like, "Oh, are you entering the costume contest?" And I said, "No, I'm all set with that." And I'm like, they're like, "Come on, bro, you got to." And then they said, "Look, the registration table's right behind you." And I turned around, and sure enough, there's the registration table, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, just
Right.
for you, I'll do it. Just for kicks and giggles,
Why not?
whatever. Because there were a lot of awesome costumes that year that I was seeing, and so I'm like, whatever, and I'm in line, and I'm waiting, you know, and apparently I didn't know how they were running this whole show, so apparently I guess people had been taking pictures of people in costume and showing them to the judges prior to the contest even going on.
Huh.
And so I'm in line, and I hear people talking about my Blade. it was the coolest thing. I'm here, but they didn't know it was me.
Right.
It's like, but Blade's not here
like-
today.
So they were like, "Oh yeah, this guy, you should saw him. He had the most awesome blade and stuff like that." And I'm like, "Oh crap, they're talking about me."
That's so rad.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome." I'm like, "Wow." I'm like, "But do I tell them?" I'm like, "No." I want to see what else they gotta say. You know?
Right.
And so I do the contest, and come to find out, the person who was the judge at the other show was a judge at this show.
Uh-huh.
So I almost felt like walking out.
Right.
I almost felt like walking out. I was like, you know what? Forget. You know what? I might as well just leave right now. I'm like, because if the same thing happens, I'm gonna be a little, disappointed.
Excuse me, Yaya Han was a fan, so
Yes, but I didn't realize that she was gonna be one of the judges.
oh,
I didn't realize that until we started getting closer to the stage and got to see who the judges were.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I said, "Hey, maybe I have a chance."
yeah,
You know.
Mhm.
And so I'm talking with friends that you that I know from the shows, and they start calling the winners, and so they called third place. It was a person, a female I knew, and was like, "Oh, okay." And then they called second place, and it was another female that I knew. In fact, it was a female that I was talking to at that time. And so they called her for second place. So third place was Aquaman, gender bend
uh-huh.
that year. Second place was Zealot from Wildcats from Image Comics.
That was Carly Wen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, so everybody had a number, and so now they're calling, the drum roll type of deal, and the cash prize of whatever it was, and they call the number right before me or after me, and I was like, "Oh man!" I'm like, right, but then they call my name,
Yeah.
so they got my number mixed up, but they called my name first.
Right.
And I was totally blown away. And that was my first place win ever in like Comic-Con world, and I was like totally blown away. And I told myself I was going to do this. but it was my first one, and I was taken back by it, and I'll never forget that. God willing, as long as I got my scruples in my memory, I'll never forget that. In fact, why would I? I'm looking at the certificate right now.
Oh.
No big deal.
Yeah, so
awesome.
it was awesome. So that was that's the only reason why I think when it got to the Rhode Island show that I had to do the Masters, because I had already won
Right.
Best in Show.
Yeah.
Right.
So so that's how I got the Masters thing, because I had no choice, but because I had already won a Best in Show. But like right now, I'm not really all about the contests.
Right. Yeah.
I might just do Rhode Island again this year as Cyborg. I don't know. We might just do it.
Well, considering you are one of the cosplay guests at Comic-Con this year, coming up actually
Next weekend?
Next weekend.
next
Yeah.
weekend,
Yep.
which is one of the many Connecticut Comic-Cons, but it's Comic-Con with
It's Comic Con with two N's, like you'd abbreviate
Ns.
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah,
It's
Comic
all one
Con.
word. It's all one word.
and I think that's the Foxwoods one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, Foxwood.
And you're going to be a guest at. Is this your first time being like an official guest? Have you done this before?
No, I've been a guest at pretty much every Rhode Island Comic Con since they started.
Oh no way.
Yes, and I have been a guest at I want to say the first Comic Con, definitely the first Comic Con.
Right.
Okay.
I think before they, ownership changed over.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've been a guest at quite a few of the altered reality shows.
How would you say? Do you enjoy the? I don't know if it's more of a comparison or because I imagine it's a lot different of an experience when you're a guest there. Typically you see like you have like a table or an area that's kind of devoted to you, as opposed to, hey, I'm at Boston Comic Con and I'm just I'm wandering around as myself, or as I'm myself in a costume, and people can stop me for pictures and things like that. Do you like is guesting like, is it more high pressure, or do you feel there's any difference in the in being a guest as opposed to being a an attendee?
To me, it's always the same, because even though I'm a guest, I opt out of having a table.
Okay.
I've done it. I had a table once at the first Comic-Con show that I did, and I've had a table at the local shows and things of that nature. I also had shared a table with my friend Noah Barrett at one of the first Boston Comic-Cons that I went to. But as a guest now, I feel because I don't have a handler, I don't have somebody that I could really rely on to be with me there every step of the way, like some of the other cosplay guests have. So it's just me. So I don't like being like just tied down to one area, because there's a good chance that the people won't be able to experience my costume and the energy that I'm able to bring to a show. So I prefer to wander, so to speak, and give more people an opportunity to be able to get a picture or have a moment, or whatever, because I'm there for eye candy.
Right. Yeah.
It's not. I'm there to try to enhance the show in a small part, my small part, because it's a very small part doing the cosplay thing for me, because the show's so big, there's so many aspects of the show, with the artists and the vendors and everything, and the photographers and all the big machine. I play a very small part of helping to enhance the ambiance, so to speak, of the show. And I feel if I am put in one location, there's a good chance that not as many people will be able to be able to get a picture with me, or me to be able to touch somebody's life by, because from dressing up in these costumes, I've loved a lot of the reactions, mostly from the kids.
Right.
So I do a lot of this for the kids, and that's the reason why I did Batman, because I have a friend, everybody knows Matches Malone, and that's my top pick for Batman, and and for that Dark Knight version of Batman, and now he's doing it. He's doing the whole Justice League, the newer version. But I've met Matches back in the first, Boston Comic Cons, and so he was the Batman, But because I wanted to do something, my costumes were a little bit more, adultish at the time. So it was like Blade was, it's an R-rated movie, so doing Batman gave me a bigger platform to be able to interact with the kids, and so I really enjoy walking around, being able to walk around, and allowing other people to be able to see the costume, and you give them such a reaction. People's reactions, like you guys said, you guys had a mad reaction when you saw me as Blade the first time.
It's true.
I do want to say I dig that, just because it's a matter of like how you're interpreting, what you're offering the show and what the show asks you to do there. Because we've encountered a lot of other conventions and cosplayers and people. We try to talk to a lot of people, and we got a lot of people's interpretations of other people and whatnot. And so there's times where I'll discover somebody and like they will try to or angle to get a guest position or get a table, so then they can put out their prints and hawk their product and sell their pictures of themselves and just try and make some money off the deal. And it's like, how much are you there for you and how much are you there for the show? And I feel like you're solely there for the show, which is great of you.
Admirable.
And as you're saying, it's like it's for the fans.
because I am a fan, you know, and I was there, you know, and I love interacting with other cosplayers and other photographers and other artists and other vendors. I love the whole machine that is Comic-Con, from everything from staff to everybody. So it's like, okay, yes, I tried selling some stuff a couple of times, but you know, I don't feel like I have as big of a fan base as, you know, some of these other cosplayers, which are mostly women, and the women, for the most part, have always dominated, I would think, you know, the whole cosplay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Thing to the most part, you know, even though the women get the most attention, and you know, it's I hate to say that, but you know, it's true. The women, I feel, get the most attention, you know, because hey, who could fault a beautiful woman in an awesome costume?
Can't.
You know, especially if they put their work and effort into the costume and they're showing their stuff. You know, it's awesome. So it was told to me, like, when I won the Boston Comic Con, that was like kind of a big deal for, you know, a male.
Yeah.
To take that, to, you know, to win that for the, you know, like that.
Right.
And so, you know, like I said, I'm highly honored by that, and you know, but I still don't feel like I have, you know, the larger fan base like some of the other, you know, cosplayers, and like, you know, because you know, you got the Yaya Hans, you got the Ivy Doom Kitties, you got the Nicole Marie Jeans, you got the Katie Coles, you got, you know, you got some of these really big names. You got Jessica Najiri, and you know, is probably one of the most popular cosplayers, female cosplayers that are out. Yeah. You know, I don't go to as many shows, and so I don't think I have as big of a fan base as that. So I feel, you know what, it's just better for me for not to try to do a table. Like I said, I don't have a handler. I don't have anybody to sit with me and make sure that everything goes well. If I need to leave the table, I would have to man the table all the time. So I just really opt out. Maybe one day, maybe I will decide to do a table and wander, and then come back to the table and wander, and then come back to the table. But for right now, it's like I said, it's just me, and I just rather go and find my friends and say hi to my friends and go walking around and just put smiles on the kids and the adults' faces.
Do you?
Because it's also putting a smile on my face.
Do you get many people who want to critique what you've made? If someone's like,
you always get that.
You know, you don't have enough mouth tubes on your Bane mask. You're supposed to have, or like, you know, the chest panels aren't exactly right on this Roadblock. So if you could fix that sometime.
Okay, if we're going to get into that, speaking of Roadblock, I did recently join the Finest, the G.I. Joe costume group.
Ooh.
And they did give me some recommendations.
Oh, well, like okay. There's times where it's like I'm asking for creative critique because I respect where it's coming from, and there's other times where it's just you didn't ask for it. I'm just here to have a good time, and you're gonna ruin my day.
I'm walking the floor, and you come up to me and you tell me that my batarangs are shaped incorrectly. You don't need to. I'm not looking for that right now.
Yeah. So you know, but I totally understand when I joined, you know, the Finest. You know, they were just trying to up my game. They were just trying to get me up, you know, up my game a little bit, and they were just making some some critiques, and that, you know, that's fine. You know, at first I got a little offended because I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you know, like, hey, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis?
Have you seen my Roadblock? It is flawless.
Well, you know, so I'm like, you know, in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the closest Roadblock I believe that's to the movie that I've seen that I know of.
Yeah.
But you know, they were, they wanted to see if I could, you know, just tweak it a little bit. So I'm like, okay. But then you have other people that are, aren't part of, you know, a different group or organization or something like that that yeah, they're gonna give you their opinion, and that's what it is. It's their opinion. But guess what? I started a group on Facebook, and it's called hashtag I cosplay my way. You know, and that's what I say. Hey, I'm cosplaying my way. This is my cosplay. This is my interpretation of it. You know, maybe I'll, you know, if I can upgrade later on, maybe I will. But you know, if I choose to. But I have had people say, you know, give comments and stuff like that, and then I start thinking about it, and I start thinking about, you know, critiquing it, and I'm like, shoot. And, you know, but it's all constructive criticism if you take it. It's also how you take it. You know, some people could be just trying to be straight jerks about it, and really, and just be like, well, you know what, Batman's not black. Then that's when you're like, oh, you went there. It's like, all right, okay, hold up a second. And, you know, and then you got to explain to them, this is a fictional character, and it could be anybody. You know, and then I have to quote my friend, Eric Moran, cosplay is colorblind. We're doing this for fun. You know, we're just doing the best representation of this character. Yes, I happen to be a person of color. You know, so what? It's a character, and it's a persona. You know, especially with Batman, it's a persona. Anybody, you know, and then you got to quote what Christian Bale said in the movie: anybody could be Batman. Batman was meant to be a symbol. Anybody can be Batman.
Right.
So,
it's true.
You know, so you get people now and then, you know, that will just try to, like, well, that wasn't shaped right, and that's the wrong color, and, you know, it's like, I don't care. I don't care what they say. You know, that's their opinion. They're entitled to their opinion. But you know what? I'm going by what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And this is me doing what I want to do. And you know, if you want to have it perfect, then hey, by all means, go. You know, knock yourself out. Try to make it yourself.
To take an ugly step into whataboutism, I don't think the same people will turn to Yaya Han and be like, Invisible Girl isn't Asian.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so at all.
So it's like, this isn't meant to be an insulting question, but it's a matter of like, do you have other hobbies? Because when I'm looking at like your Arkham Batman, and I'm trying to imagine like the amount of work and time that it takes to cut the foam, or to Dremel it down, or to however you put your details into it and then paint it, and however many layers of paint you put into it. And I'm wondering, like, what else do you do while you're doing that? Like, do you watch TV? Do you listen to music? Like, how much of your attention is focused on doing this, and how long does it take?
Hey guys, you know we've been talking for like an hour and 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're already pretty far in.
Yeah. Yep. This one's going by real quick.
Wow, it went that quickly, and we still haven't gotten into any of the real juicy questions. What do you? But yeah, to answer that question, I like to work out, as you obviously
Right.
can tell.
It is very evident.
I'm a gym rat at times, you know, and I'm a martial artist, so I haven't trained for a while, but I put in my like 15 years to get my black sash, which I'm very proud of, and so I spend time with my son, and we do things, you know. So, but to tell you the truth, I'm an artist. I was planning on trying to do a comic book, and it went from a comic book to making decals, and went from decals to doing cosplay, and it seems like I'm not really. I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself when I'm not making costumes.
Uh-huh.
It's gotten to that level, and I don't have a whole lot of room to be storing these costumes. So it's like, that's why I think I constantly am trying to like upgrade whatever I have, so I don't have to go and make something completely new because I don't have a lot of room to be storing these things.
I kind of want to say, like, it's almost, I can see that in some of your choosing, because your Thunderbolts Luke Cage, it's like, well, you know, you got your yellow shirt and you have to make your gauntlets, and that one's it's pretty much done. It's not like the gauntlets won't take up as much room as any of your bat armors.
Yeah, no, the gauntlets for that type of thing, yeah, that's really minimal. If I'm going for full body, costume, it's for armor wise, that takes up some room. I have a nice hanger, a coat, like one of those hangers that you would find in the stores that they put the shirts on and stuff like that. So a friend of mine who was selling her business,
like the body form.
Not a body form, but just like where like a regular stand that they put their their shirts on and display and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I have one bat suit on that. I have the other bat suit in my office, hanging up on the wall. Cyborg is presently just laid out on the bed until I could find a way to prop him up. My Roadblock vest is draped over one of my bedroom door. I have my Cyborg helmet, my Spartan helmet, and my Batman mech suit helmet, and my Arkham Knight Batman helmet, all in my bedroom. So yeah, it's just everything's all over the place sometimes.
Jer, have you seen his the Nightwing outfit he made for his son?
I think I saw it because I've been browsing your Facebook page pretty much the entirety of this episode, which you can find it at Raymond Ramos Cosplay on Facebook. You can see there's tons of progress pictures, there's tons of completed pictures, like going way back up until I think around the time we first had seen you. But it just really goes to show your progress process and all that goes into it. One question I did have is about when to is there a mindset that goes into this when you decide, okay, I've been wearing, just as an example, I've been wearing Bane for a little while now, maybe it's time to make something new. Is there a limit? I'm only going to wear Bane for X amount of times and then it's done? Or is it, what? My creative juices are going. I need to make something new. What's your, if you want to give us a quick summary, because there's so much more to talk about, but we're already almost out of time.
Yeah.
Do you have a summary of your process of when you come up with something?
It all depends on how I feel. It really all depends on how I feel. I for the longest time I told myself I wasn't going to do anything other beside Blade. And once I met Matches Malone and we started doing some photo shoots together, I wanted to do something that with photo shoots would complement me teaming up with him. Uh-huh. And so I was like, okay, what could I make? And so I'm like, I saw other people doing Bane at the time, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll throw my hat in and try to do Bane. So that's where Bane came from. After Bane, it depends. Maybe the G.I. Joe Retaliation movie came out. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm digging this costume and his vest and stuff like that. So I made Roadblock, or the Arkham Knight video game comes out, and I'm like, oh, I love this Batman. You know what? I think I want to do this Batman. So it all depends on what happens, and I guess in day-to-day life that might motivate you to say, hey, I think I want to try to make this costume.
Do you have, I don't suppose you've remembered or kept track over the years, but how many people have asked you to break their back?
I'm pretty sure you saw some of the recent pictures I posted.
Yep.
Some of the memories.
Well, we got a good one. We had a Bane at a steampunk convention a couple of years ago, and our friend Brett was like, "You have to break my back. Can you please break my back?" Got a good picture with him, and then I was jealous that my back wasn't broken.
There's a good portion, believe it. When I bring Bane out, there's a good portion of people that say, "Could you break my back?" And so it's just part of the what the character is known for.
Uh-huh.
He break. So it's some people I'm like, you know what? I'm not lifting you up over my head.
Not today.
Happen. So we came up with the whole thing of, okay, you just kind of bend over backwards and on my knee, and we'll do the picture that way. But yeah, there's been, when you're just as Bane, you're gonna get a bunch of people that ask that. So I can't remember exactly how many, but it's been over 20.
It's let's see. It's not a vain thing, but I know because I've done it in the past. Do you look up pictures of yourself? Like, do you go on Instagram and like look up like
Hunt down the hashtags.
hunt down the hashtag for the event you're at, and then who you are? Because I've done it
No,
for.
I never actually know how to use that. I don't really actually know how to do that.
Respect.
But I do. I just wait to see when somebody tags me in the post. I'm like, ooh, and I go and I save it and I share it.
Yeah.
And so yeah. But I love seeing pictures of myself. I just do. It's because it's a memory. It's a moment in time where you knew you were having a ball, and you're not just affecting your mood, but you're affecting the mood of everybody that's around you. There's a picture that I have, and I'm going to be posting it probably later tonight. I found a picture of me with another friend dressed as Arkham Knight Batman. And there is a guy in the background, and his face, he's got his hand up covering over his mouth, and he's looking at us like, oh my gosh, type of reaction. And that's the only way I could think of it. And so it's like, I love those moments. Those moments fuel me to want to keep doing this because it's just pure fun. As long as you don't get too sucked into the, everything can have a negative flip side to it. As long as you don't get sucked into that portion of it, and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's total enjoyment, 24/7.
It's like a validation of, because you put all this time and effort into making this thing. So when you go and you show it and people are impressed by it to the point where I'm covering my mouth because I cannot believe how good this is. It's just it's like the reward for all the hard work that you put into it. So I totally, despite being someone who I'm not one for cosplay, but like I can see where it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, it is. Except every once in a while you'll get some people who might try to bash you for doing what you do, like a certain radio station that bashed me for doing my impersonation of Bane. And I don't know if you guys want to get into that, but yeah, there's a certain radio station, and they just they gave me false pretenses of what their whole segment was going to be, and they interviewed me, and they said, yeah, well, we're going to do this whole thing, and it's going to be, kind of like, are you smarter than a fifth grader, but in, Comic-Con type of thing.
I want to say, if we get started on that, we're going to go way over time. Because like, it's obvious you have plenty to say about it. There's a lot that I want to add into it. But I think it might be best if we get back together for a part 2 at another time.
Yeah, we could do a part 2 because I got plenty to talk about. Yeah, that's awesome.
There's so much. I can't believe how fast this episode went. And because there's so much that I want to touch on, but I think we also don't want to rush it.
Yeah,
because it's stuff that deserves like as much attention, as we can give it. And I don't want to because the thing with the radio, I think we even touched on it in an episode maybe. I can't remember if we did, but when that first happened, and this is our way of hyping up your part 2 because we're gonna leave people on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
That was I remember reading about that, and because we didn't know you, but we knew of you, and it almost felt like in a way like a friend was being attacked.
Yeah.
It was just, you'll have to excuse me. It was fucked up, man. But
It was, bro. And you know what? Thank you for having the attitude, and I'm thankful for all the other people that had that same attitude because I was really kind of with that. Really? I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I didn't like the name of the whole segment, but whatever. We'll get into that later. But the fact that it was going according to plan until somebody changed that plan.
Right.
And we can get into that another time. But, they shouldn't, the way they changed that plan and then just kind of attack character when they don't know anything about you is just, some people just do that. They just, they might just attack you for doing what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as we, sadly we are getting here toward the end here, and I would really like to be able to speak with you again, hopefully in the near future, Raymond. Real quick, where can we mentioned your Facebook page? Is there anywhere else where people can find your work? Also, any appearances coming up? Any conventions that you're going to be attending? Where might people be able to see you and your work?
Well, I'll definitely be, God willing, I will be attending Comic-Con at Foxwoods Resort and Casino this weekend. Following next week, not this weekend. The following weekend.
That's June 30th.
Is it? It's the 30th and July 1st.
Yep.
I believe I'll be making a couple of other appearances. I'm hoping to make it to, supposed to be making it to Super Mega Fest, but that will be later on in the year. Obviously, I'm a Rhode Island Comic-Con guy, so you guys can find me there. And whatever else I can make it to, I'll be sure. If you guys are following my page or whatever, you'll see I'm always posting what's going on, and things of that nature. I have my personal page. I post a lot of stuff on my personal page, and then I basically share all the stuff on my personal page pretty much almost with my cosplay page. So you guys can find me, like I said, at cosplay, Raymond Ramos Cosplay, or on Instagram at Daywalker X Night, and X and then night as in like night with a K.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha.
And I'm always posting pictures. Constantly posting pictures. I can't help. I mean, pictures they're like I said, they're moments in time that you never want to forget. That's why we take the picture. So I like to share that with as many people as I can. It's not about me saying, "Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me," even though part of you does. Okay, I'm not gonna front because part of me does like the attention. But I also like to share what I'm doing because it can motivate and inspire other people to say, hey, that looks fun. Mm-hmm. I want to try that. If he could do that, why can't I?
Absolutely.
And I try to help as many people as I can. That's why I'm constantly documenting my progresses and processes. So if somebody's trying to do something, they could be like, wow, it's not as hard as I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing it. He's showing me how to do it, and I'm going to go for it. And I've had people tell me I've inspired them to make their costumes and things of that nature, or to get into cosplay. And there's nothing better than that. To be able to help somebody to get into that whole thing and just have fun with themselves and be more comfortable with themselves and be inspirational. It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Absolutely. Raymond, I got to say this was an absolute pleasure. I say it all the time, when we don't know people and we reach out and we're like, hey, would you mind coming on? We have no idea how it's going to go. It's always so, I guess, reassuring, satisfying. I don't know the word, but just to find out that the people that we admire are so cool and down to earth and just... It's just great. It was a lot of fun, Raymond, and I can't thank you enough and we can't thank you enough for coming on.
No, well, thank you very much for reaching out.
Absolutely.
I love it. This is, like I said, I love this, because it gives me more opportunity to share my story and help you guys, give you guys some really cool content to throw on and stuff. And have a laugh at and be like, oh man, that was good. We got to do that one again.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those we're going to have to revisit because there's so much more that we need to get to. But we'll leave that. We'll leave our listeners wanting. They'll have to wait, and hopefully sometime in the near future we'll be able to meet up again. I'm sure we'll probably, if you're going to Boston Comic-Con this year, I'm sure we'll probably bump into you at some point.
I haven't been since Expo bought them out.
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
I don't know why. The vibe kind of changed a little. People were saying, they didn't feel the family vibe as much anymore. I mean, who knows? Maybe it went a little bit too corporate. I don't know.
Right.
But I'm hoping to get back up in there. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
But I believe I think that's all we have time for this week. Again, thank you so much for coming on. Go check out Raymond's work, Facebook, Instagram, in person. If you're at Comic-Con next weekend, June 30th, that's in not Hartford. That's at Foxwoods Resort Casino. Again, that's Comic-Con with two N's, con like Connecticut. So you can go and you can see it in person.
Yeah, hit these guys back up and tell them we want Raymond back.
Exactly. That's a huge thing. Like we may be laughing, but that's a big deal. If there's someone that you like and you want to see him at a show,
Tell the show.
tell the show.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
because otherwise they may not know. Like that it's a huge thing that maybe a lot of people are
I'm
into.
talking about back on this show. This show right here.
Oh yeah, I mean
You
we're
want to hear more from Raymond. Cosplay Ray is in the house. You want more. Yeah.
I mean, how can you argue with that? You can't.
Well, we're Opinions May Vary and OMV Podcast. We're throughout Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We're either of those two things. You'll find us a bunch of places.
You'll find us, and you'll find really neat conversations with rad people like Raymond. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this time. Hopefully, part 2 will be coming up sometime in the near future. We can get into like Raymond said, we'll get into the juicy stuff. But until then, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Raymond, Cosplay Ray.
And this has been episode 327 of Opinions May Vary.